Good morning. So, okay, our theme this month is inspired by the heat of the summer and what we've been doing to stay cool. Have we been maintaining that, able to handle it pretty well? I've said each week that our response to the physical heat could be a powerful metaphor for how we handle life when it heats up. And each week we've explored different ways to keep our spiritual cool when the heat is on. Today begins a two-parter, hence part one. Next week will be part two, on Wally Amos's engaging book, The Watermelon Credo. In that book, he sets forth a credo for living, which we're going to explore this week and next. This credo, provides more ingredients for keeping our cool when the heat is on, just like a slice of cold watermelon that helps us stay cool during the summer. And there is actually, some watermelon that we get to enjoy after the service today. So, who knows who Wally Amos is? Yeah? Okay, of course, he's our founder of the famous Amos cookies. Oh, yes. Some of the best store-bought cookies that you'll ever taste, really. And he got the recipe from his aunt, and then he tweaked it, and he made it into this amazing, I just remember getting those back. They are delicious cookies. Okay, so without going into his vast history, and there is a lot of history, let's suffice it to say that he didn't always have such an easy time. He didn't become famous right away. He found himself with the heat on him many times throughout his life. Growing up in the segregated South of the 40s and 50s, being raised by a single mother after his parents divorced when he was young, as well as business and financial failures as an adult, and one of those failures lost him his name. Well, not quite his name, but his trademark. Due to financial troubles, he was forced to sell the famous Amos Cookie Company. And because the name Famous Amos was trademarked by the company, he could no longer use it. And that's just kind of sad. But none of that dampened his indomitable spirit. And he went on to do some wonderful things in the world, such as being an advocate for literacy and helping thousands of adults to read. In 1987, he hosted a television series designed to teach others how to read entitled Learn to Read. In addition, he wrote a number of inspirational books, including The Watermelon Magic, Seeds of Wisdom, Slices of Life, in which he uses things associated with watermelon, including the Watermelon Credo. So what is the Watermelon Credo? It's an acronym out of the word watermelon to offer advice on facing life's challenges. Today we're going to explore the water part, and next week we'll explore the melon part. So, is everybody ready to get into this? Okay. So, let's see. We'll start with, maybe? There we go. W. Whatever you believe creates your reality. Whatever you believe creates your reality. Believe that life is a positive experience, and it will be. Believe it is difficult, hard, and challenging, and it will be. Sound like that? It sounds like it came right out of religious science, doesn't it? The science of mind. Well, as we know, the truth is the truth, no matter where it comes from, and this is absolute spiritual truth. So if, or I should say, when we feel the heat is on in our life, and my guess is that there's at least someone here this morning who might be feeling a little bit of that right now, where is the first place to start to cool things off? Where do we start to cool things off? Here's a hint. It's not out there.
No.
Not out there. Rather, it's within our own hearts, within our own minds. And we do it with this question. What are we believing about ourselves, about our lives, about our situation, about others, about you fill in the blank? What is it that we're believing about that? Where's our belief taking us? Because it all starts with a thought. Challenging times call for a new perspective. They call us to look at our beliefs and what our beliefs are and whether or not they are serving us. That's a good one. Are our beliefs serving us? They call us sometimes in an instant to rethink how we are doing life and make a change right then and there. So does anybody enjoy classical music? Yeah, okay. Well, I do love classical music, and I love violin music. And I think I've shared this story before, but it's Zach Perlman, one of the greatest violinists of all times. And this is a story about him that is really quite inspiring. So this is in 1995, and he came on stage to give a concert at Lincoln Center in New York City. And if you've ever been to a Perlman concert, you know that getting on stage is no small, if you've even watched it on TV, no small achievement for him, because he was stricken with polio as a child. And so he has locked braces on both legs, and he walks with 2 crutches. And on this particular night, as always, he walked across the stage, one step at a time, painfully yet majestically, until he reached his chair. Then he sat down, and he slowly put his crutches on the floor, and he undid the locks on his braces, and he tucked one foot back under the chair and extended the other foot forward. Then he bent down and he picked up his violin and he put it under his chin. And he nodded to the conductor to begin to play. And the performance began like every performance that he gives, but then something went wrong. Just as he finished the first few bars, one of the strings on his violin broke. You could hear it snap. It went off like gunfire across the room. There was no mistaking what that sound meant. There was no mistaking what he had to do. People who were there that night knew that he would have to lock up his braces, pick up his crutches, get up and slowly make his way off the stage to either get another violin or a string for this one. But he didn't do any of that. Instead, he closed his eyes, he paused, and after a deep breath, he signaled the conductor to begin again. The orchestra began, and he began to play from where he had left off. And he played with more passion and more power and more purity than he had ever played before. Now, anyone knows, who knows anything about playing a violin, that it's impossible to play a symphonic work with just 3 strings. But that night, Itzhak Perlman refused to know that. Here's what a woman who experienced the concert wrote. You could see him modulating, changing, recomposing the piece in his head. At one point, it sounded like he was detuning the strings to get sounds from them that they had never made before. When he finished, there was an awesome silence in the room, and then people rose and cheered. There was an extraordinary outburst of applause from every corner of the auditorium. We were all on our feet, screaming and cheering, doing everything we could to show how much we appreciated what he had done. He smiled, wiped the sweat from his brow, raised his bow to quiet us, and then he said, not boastfully, but in a quiet, pensive, reverent tone, sometimes it is the artist's task to find out how much music you can still make with what you have left.
Wow.
Ooh. If you believe you still have music to make, and I believe you do, or you wouldn't be sitting here, right? You can make it, because whatever you believe creates your reality. Whatever you believe creates your reality. So let's move on to A in watermelon. A, attitude, is the magic word. Once again, straight out of of our teachings here. I'm guessing that we will find that that this is going to be true throughout our entire talk with the Credo, don't you think? That it's really going to reflect everything, because the truth is the truth. So, again, your greatest asset is your attitude. In fact, it is magic. Did you know that statistically more heart attacks occur on Mondays than any other day of the week? That's just we don't buy into statistics, but that's what I've read. Many of us have learned to say on Friday, TGIF, right? Thank God it's Friday. But what if we start this Monday with a different attitude? TGIM. Thank God it's Monday. Whew. Actually, I know my daughter says that when her children go to school, but that's a whole nother story. But, if we say TGIM, I have a chance to create a week out of an attitude of intention, out of design, rather than default. This is not a repetition of a week I've ever known before. Wow, we keep thinking that each week is just going to be a repetition of what we did last week, but no, this is a week I have never known before. And I can open up to the magic that this Monday has in store for me. And how's this for a magical attitude? Surprisingly, it comes from the Willie and Ethel comic strip. Willie says to his wife, "We could have lost a freezer full of food when I accidentally unplugged the fridge. But instead, because it was totally empty, we lost nothing." We have to be 2 of the luckiest people in the world. Good attitude there. Heed this profound wisdom from Charles Fillmore in Talks on Truth. He writes, pronounce every experience good and of God, and by that mental attitude you will call forth only the good. What seemed error will disappear, and only the good will remain. This is the law, and no one can break it. The adversary always flees before the mind that is fixed on the pure, the just, and the upright. And with that magical attitude, we're going to move on to T. So, together everyone achieves more, which is another acronym for team. This credo speaks to the power of synergy, which is defined as the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Otherwise said, as there are no limits to what we can accomplish together. There are no limits. Has anybody ever heard of the 10 tenors? We're kind of getting into a little musical theme here this morning. They're 10 relatively young men from Australia. Each one of these men are extremely talented. Each one in their own right is a very gifted singer. But when they blend one voice with another and then another and another, something quite magical occurs. The music they make is way more than 10 times what one could make on his own. They are the perfect example of synergy and the perfect example of together everyone achieves more. Now you know that I'm always inviting you to apply what we talk about here on Sunday into your own life, and I haven't done that yet. So this is the audience participation part here. So I want you to pause for a brief moment before we get to the E and the R of water and ask yourself to think about the credo thus far and how each letter might apply to your life when the heat is on. So the W, whatever you believe creates your reality. A, attitude is the magic word. And T, together everyone achieves more. What can you take from these three ideas and use in your life right now? Apply them right now to something that is going on in your life. I want you to think about that just for a moment. And then I want you to turn to someone, it can be anybody, and I want you to take just 30 seconds. I'm going to time it, and then I'm going to ring the chime to tell them just one actually, how you can use what we have discussed here today so far. So, is everybody ready to start? Okay, everybody understand what we're doing here? Okay, you're going to, how you can use one of those to something, apply it in your life right now. What can you do to apply one of these in your life right now? So let's get started, and then you got 30 seconds, and then you'll switch.
I think the attitude is the one that's jumped out at me. I really do feel that you're out.
I would say attitude actually is
Problems are just everyday life. I would say not just what you're projecting, but it's
Okay, switch. Switch to the other person.
Yeah, because something I have to make her is going the right place.
On Monday, to go to one to work. When was I happy? I was happy when I was
So we know.
There you go. Okay, let's come back.
Okay, thank you. This is pretty good right now.
Because it was a Monday like no other Monday. Suzanne just shared a great story. She'll share that after. Yeah, great story on how she did TGIM, and I love it. I love it. So, well, actually, if you want to share it real quickly, what you did.
Well, Monday I found I wasn't looking forward to going to work. I haven't for quite some time now. So I thought back when I really did enjoy Mondays, and I realized when I was in high school I really enjoyed Mondays. I'd get all dressed up, my nicest clothes and my hair and my makeup, and I was looking forward to seeing my friends and maybe getting in a little trouble or something. And I did. I turned on the music, I had Boston playing, and I put on my best, and I was happy. I was really happy going to work.
So it
It was
worked.
attitude.
That's great. Just attitude. There you go.
And I felt 16 again.
And you look 16. So there you go. All right. All right.
Well, when did we get so serious? When did we stop having the rest of our life ahead of us?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just like,
Yeah.
it's just a job.
Just, yeah.
31 years ago, it's just a job.
But it's fun now.
Yeah.
It's a fun job.
funner.
And you have Princess the cat. So
Yes, I do.
yes, you do. Okay. So let's go on to E. Enthusiasm is the wellspring of life. Enthusiasm. Don't you feel so energized when you're enthusiastic about something? It's just such a wonderful feeling. Amos writes, there is no limit to what can be accomplished with enough enthusiasm. Sometimes it's the wave that carries everyone else with you to get something done, and then it just makes it seem so easy. This goes along with Ernest Holmes in Words That Heal Today. Holmes writes, enthusiasm is the most creative of all the imaginative faculties. There is something light, unobstructed, and weightless about it. Wow, so true. Or one of Charles Fillmore's most famous statements from Unity magazine, this was in September 2000, and Suzanne likes this one. This is one of her favorite quotes. I fairly sizzle with joy and enthusiasm and spring forth with a mighty faith to do the things that ought to be done by me. Wow, I just love that. I fairly sizzle. Ooh. Of course, sizzling right now. We're all sizzling a little bit right now. But it's been said that nothing great has ever been achieved without enthusiasm. But you may say, how in the world am I supposed to feel enthusiasm when I find myself in the heat of things? Am I supposed to say, gee, I'm so enthusiastic that things really suck right now? No, I'm not suggesting that, and neither is this Credo. But how about looking for something, even in the midst of the heat, for which you could feel some level of enthusiasm? And to do that, simply look for all that is going well in your life. When we're in that middle of the heat, we tend to think that that is all there is because it's right there in front of us. And we totally ignore, we forget, we discount the other 90% that is working perfectly fine. Boy, do we take it for granted that the sun came up this morning, the air conditioning works, my car started. We forget, we take for granted all those things that are working for us. And we focus on that one tiny little detail that isn't. Remember that we don't have to go from despair to ecstatic. We just have to move up a few rungs on the emotional scale. And that can make such a huge difference. I think a lot of times we think if we can't make that incredible leap that, well, why even try? But just even a little bit helps. If enthusiasm really is the wellspring of life, then use that idea to bring some light to you in the middle of the challenge by being enthusiastically grateful for something that is working. And that's where the discipline comes in. That is where the discipline. So right now, think of something that is totally working in your life. I'm thinking this air conditioning's feeling really good. And if you can't think of a darn thing, let me suggest that your heart is beating perfectly. Wow, you didn't even have to tell it to, right? Beating perfectly. Or your lungs are breathing exactly as they should. Wow. Use one of those if you really can't think of anything else. But I'm sure we can all think of so many of the blessings that are available in our lives right now, that are happening right now. And now, on the count of 3, I want everyone to speak together with great enthusiasm and say, I am so happy and grateful that. So we're going to do that on the count of 3. So 1, 2, 3. I am so happy and grateful that the air conditioning is working. Okay. You know, I sizzle with enthusiasm when I hear that. I really do. So let's explore the last letter for today. Here we go. The letter R, which stands for respect yourself as well as others. So many times we're last. We put everybody else out there. Respect to to consider worthy of high regard. We offer a sign of respect each week in the form of our namaste greeting, don't we? We give each other that respect. The God in me sees and greets and honors the God in you. Wow. But we first recognize that there's the God in me who is doing the seeing, who is doing the respecting. That's high regard. Do you consider yourself worthy of high regard? Do you hold others in high regard? Do you suppose our world would look like it does if this credo were followed? Wow. How do you think our whole world would look if each one of us held each other in high regard everywhere? Everywhere. How would you feel about yourself? What do you suppose you could accomplish? We could have as much, would we have as much of the violence that we have going on in our world right now? Would we have the drug abuse happening? Would we have the debilitating political divisiveness like we're experiencing? Would we even have war? Would we have war? Would we have terrorism? For just a moment, think about a world where everyone respected themselves and everyone else. Wow. Get an image of that in your mind. What does it look like? What does that look like in a world where everyone respects themselves and everyone else? Share with me. What does it look like?
Beautiful and peaceful.
Oh yeah, peaceful.
Very peaceful, doesn't it?
Lavender and pink.
Lavender and pink. Productive. Can you imagine how productive we could be if we weren't focused on destroying? Wow. Creative. Where you felt safe to create and to be generous and give of your creation. Wow. These are images I think we need to spend a little time focusing on each day. Respect for ourselves and others. It's pretty powerful. It can be very powerful. So there we have the first 5 ideas to help us keep our cool when life heats up. And I know it's a lot, so I suggest going back and listening to this tape if you want to once I get it online. And I'm going to type these up and have them on a card for everyone, because I think it's just nice to have to remember, so that we can embody these 5 ideas, which are, let's just go through them again. W, whatever you believe creates your reality. A, attitude is the magic word. T, together everyone achieves more. E, enthusiasm is the wellspring of life. R, respect yourself as well as others. Okay, so each one of these, and certainly all of them combined, help us to remember to live from God to God. From God to God. Creating a world that works for everyone, even when the heat is on. And so it is. Namaste.